People see results, but they don't see what we had to go through in order to get there. Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right, but nothing seems to be working out? Trust me, I know how that feels. Hi there, welcome back. And if you're new to this channel, welcome to Vidal Lighthouse. So, this is basically a safe space where we talk about becoming, faith, self development, and finding your way when life feels uncertain. So let's get into it. Today, I want to talk about the silent battles nobody sees. Yes, because on my end, people will see the awards, the highlights, but they don't see the fact that at some point I felt like giving up. At some point, I felt so discouraged. At some point, I doubted myself, even though that I believe that I was led to create these products, I was led to do these things. But then at some point, I doubted myself, and I believe that I'm not alone. You're also going through that, or somebody that went through that, or is currently going through that. So, on my end, God led me into creating my journal and my storybook. But despite that, I still doubted myself and would question, "Gosh, are people really going to buy it? Are people really going to like it?" Especially now that everyone's going into the digital world, right? Are people actually going to find interest in the journal? Yeah. And honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that my dad borrowed me money, my dad borrowed me money to actually produce these products, right? I believe that I wouldn't have put it out there. If it was my money that I use, I would have probably left it, or if I didn't use any money at all, right? I would have put that aside for now and tried to convince myself, yes. But because hey, I had to pay back the money, right? And my mom was also behind me. She was willing to support me and take me to different places so I could put myself out there. So it would have been weird. You came to us with a project and now we want to support you and you're trying to back down. So my mom would take me to people's houses for me to present different Cameroon communities, their meetings, art associations, yes. And I'd present my books there and make a couple of sales. And then at some point, I think it was during the holidays, I would find events, whether it's sports events, church events, I would go there and present my books and sell. Now, aside from me having self doubt and all of that, what made it worse is there are times where I would go to events, I'll spend the whole day, and at times I wouldn't sell any books. I would sell one, I'd sell two. There were days where I would sell even like seven. For a period of time, there was a specific period where I would only sell maybe one or two books, right? Now, imagine how discouraging that is to go back home and to tell your parents that you spent the whole day. They know that you went to do business. And at some point, I would feel embarrassed, right? May God forgive me. Sometimes I would lie. My dad would be like, "How many books did you sell?" And I would say that, I sold just one, but then I actually didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. And I would force myself to be positive. So, because I didn't want them discouraging me, I didn't want anybody having to discourage and all of that, because already I was going through a lot right now. For somebody to come and be like, "Ha, then stop wasting your time going to events." I didn't want that. Because deep down, you know, this is something that you were meant to do, right? I didn't know why, but then I knew that I had to show up, right? And it's later on that I realized why. Hi there. Sorry for interrupting your video. I know that you are enjoying the topic, but I just want to ask you a question. Have you heard of a journal called "I'm Worthy of My Dreams" by Vidal Footing? So this journal is not an ordinary journal. It is actually a 6 month structured journal for teens and above, basically helping them with their mental well-being. For those that are struggling with negative mindset, low self-esteem, struggling to keep track of their goals, people that have a lot going on in their minds and they just want a place in which they can write it down or jot it down, right? Or people that are just on a journey of self-development. This journal basically reminds you to be grateful, reminds you to affirm yourself every day, and just keep track of your goals. And if you are looking for a short, inspiring children's storybook that introduces them to affirmations and teaches them about their worth, basically kids from 6 to 12, this is definitely a great book, Martha's Little Secret. Please don't mind the rainbow on top. It does not represent the LGBTQ team. Yes, I hope I said that right. Thank you for allowing me to interrupt your video. Please don't forget to comment, subscribe, and share. Let's continue watching the video. I would force myself to look at the bright side, right? And be like, you know what, I actually met new people, I got new connections. As much as I didn't sell, right? I think at some point I was on the Alberton Record newsletter. So I was just known as this young author, this young entrepreneur, that is, and it just felt so nice. So that's what I had to use to motivate myself and to also continue praying, because I knew that God wants to take me somewhere, but then I didn't know where. I just knew that I had to be obedient. And what I liked about the whole thing, because people would ask me, oh my word, how did you start writing? And I would tell them how God led me to writing it. So that's also a way of putting God in front, right? Because I believe that for every Christian, their duty is to bring people closer to God. So it's a way of using my life, right, to bring people closer to God, to be like, look at what God did for my life, right? Look at how I never dreamed of becoming an author, but God had other plans for me. So it was also really encouraging for the youth, for people around me, even adults. Oh my word, at a young age, right? Especially with my academic background, a lot of people were like, did she study? They would ask my parents, did she study writing thing in school? I didn't. I really enjoy telling people like the story of, look at how God used me, so He can definitely do the same for you. Yeah, so that happened for 2 or 3 years, feeling discouraged. There were times where I'm just like, did I hear God right? Is this really something that He wants me to do? It was really crazy, from being motivated to being demotivated, and it was just a wave, up and down, up and down, up and down. But anyways, after 2 or 3 years, I went for an event in September. I remember a Heritage Day event, and I met the Deputy High Commissioner of Cameroon in South Africa. I don't think I've ever met this man before, but I met him, and that day I sold so many books. Like, I made a lot of sales. I got to speak to different people, and then from there he invited me to an event that was happening the following year, Cameroon's National Day. That's where I was invited. That's how I was introduced, sorry, to High Commissioner himself. I shared a stage with him. He introduced me to diplomatic people. It was so amazing. I really enjoyed that day. I even increased the prices of my books, and I still made sales. I met different diplomatic people, and from that event I got invited to another event where I actually made money. Like, I got to sell my books, and they paid me to present a poem in front of diplomatic people. And it's just like, wow, 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 wow. Like, I was really grateful for being consistent and for really trusting God. Because imagine if I just abandoned my books and was like, you know what, I'm tired of this. I wouldn't have went to that event, right, where I met the High Commissioner. God just wants your obedience, because one thing I've learned also is delayed obedience is also disobedience. Because imagine if I didn't go to that event that September, right, I wouldn't have met the High Commissioner, and he wouldn't have invited me to the event where he introduced me to the High Commissioner. So it would have been a longer process, right? But because I was obedient, even though it wasn't easy, even though it wasn't easy, I still showed up. And also during that period, I was also nominated for different awards, and I won 3 out of the 5. And that is something big. And for those awards, they wanted proof. I had to do a slideshow, PowerPoint, showing them the impact that I've done. So imagine if I didn't go to these events where I only sold one book. Obviously, they won't care if you like sold one book or what. They just want to see the impact you've done. The fact that you showed up, right, to different places. And they also did like the background search to call these places, like, hey, did Vidal really come there? Did she do this? And yes, they gave their testimony that she came, she spoke, she inspired. Imagine if I didn't show up. So I'm here today to tell you that I know it's not easy. I know sometimes you ask yourself, did I hear God? I like, is it that I was hungry during that moment and I was hearing things? I totally understand it. I totally understand it, but don't give up. Don't give, especially when you know it's something that you are meant to do and God has told you to do it. Continue praying and continue showing up. You may not understand why you keep getting rejected, why you're not making any sales, why people keep doubting you, discouraging you, why they're trying to kick you out. But trust me when I say God is not sleeping, right? If you know, I'll keep repeating this. If you know that this is something that you are meant to do, you feel it in you that this is something that you are meant to do, right? Show up. It's not going to be easy. Sometimes you wake up crying. Sometimes you drag your feet there, right? And always remember to document your journey, because you may not use it for awards, but it's always a good reminder, right, later on, to be like, oh, and you also have proof to show other people, to use your story as a testimony that this is proof that I showed up. It wasn't easy. You see me smiling in that picture, but I was doubting God. I had a fight with God in the morning and I was asking him, like, what is this? But you still have to show up. Okay, I would just like to end by repeating, delayed obedience is still disobedience. And obedience, it's not about understanding, it is about trust. If this message spoke to you, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Thank you.